Men of Reddit, what's a myth about men that's 100% untrue and it infuriates you whenever you hear it? Story 1. That men can't be victims of abuse or domestic violence from women. Yeah, we can, and statistically, if we report it, there's a solid chance that we'll be the ones going to jail for it, even if all we did was take it and not fight back. Screw that. My brothers have dealt with this. I'm sorry. I wish I had advice for dealing with it, but I unfortunately don't. To all others, the FBI says at least 40% of domestic violence happens to men. We need to destigmatize this and make punishment just as severe for women who perpetrate abuse as it is for men. Yes, men can endure domestic violence and women can perpetrate domestic violence too. This is not a condemnation of women or defense of violent men, it's just merely a statement of fact. A man who says he has endured domestic violence is not taking anything away from women who have endured domestic violence. Neither is he a perpetrator who is lying in an attempt to justify or continue his violence. He's just a man who's sharing his experience. Story 2. I hate it when I'm out with my kids, people jokingly say, "Are you on daddy duty?" I've never heard someone ask if a mom is on mommy duty. It's assumed that men don't take their kids places, and it really annoys me because I work full time, but I also get my kids ready in the morning, cook them breakfast, prepare their lunches, eat lunch with them at school once per week, and then bring them to most doctor and dentist appointments. Story 3. That only creepy men enjoy being around children. The problem is society makes every man who enjoys being around children a creep. I love kids and they're very entertaining, but I have to be careful because people will be quick to judge and accuse me of things. Seriously, I was standing in the checkout line at the grocery store the other day, and this woman's son, probably around 5 years old, started showing me this little toy laser gun his mom bought him. I was just playing along and acted like I was super interested, as you do, and his mom gave me this angry look like she didn't want me interacting with her kid. I'm a freaking 21-year-old guy and people already think I'm a creep if I interact with a kid? Sweet. Story 4. That we are emotionless. Sometimes it's just not the right situation to show how you're feeling. Just because I'm not showing it doesn't mean I'm not feeling it. When I was younger, my grandmother passed away and I internalized everything. Everyone just assumed that I was indifferent about it, and when I was asked to say something at her funeral and I declined, people assumed I didn't care. The fact was that I didn't want to lose it on stage in front of an entire church. The day of the funeral, I bawled my eyes out not even 2 seconds in. Moral of the story, every guy has feelings. Even if he's silent, he's probably still mourning or angry or happy, sad, etc. Story 5. I wouldn't call it a myth, but when a guy is helpful around the house and just courteous in general, sometimes a woman will say, "Your wife/girlfriend has trained you well." No, we managed to become decent human beings without a woman's help. Screw you very much. Story 6. You know what? I did give a crap about my wedding day. I cannot believe the amount of people, mostly ladies, who just straight up assumed all you have to remember is where to be and to say "I do," right? Ha ha ha. Frickin' annoying. I had ideas of how I wanted it to look and how I wanted it to go as well. But my goodness, not a single person thought I gave a crap even though I was constantly trying to give my take on stuff. It was always met with, "Oh, you don't need to worry about that," or "Oh, the ladies will figure that out." Like, this is infuriating. People are always so surprised when we were planning a wedding and I said, "I'm in charge of catering, the cake, the DJ, and centerpieces." They were amazed that I cared about my wedding and I wanted to help plan it. Story 7. I freaking love Bath and Body Works. I love mojitos, margaritas, and other fruity cocktails. I will always buy pads or tampons when asked. I cry sometimes. I can point out and notice a good-looking guy, as a straight guy, and this is the one that gets me the most. Sometimes I feel like I can't compliment a new haircut or whatever. I also hate the "no homo" thing. A compliment isn't gay unless you make it gay. Story 8. I freaking hate the dirty looks I get from mothers when I take my child to the playground. For some reason, I'm considered a pervert first before a responsible parent. Yes, I'm staring at the play equipment covered in kids. No, I'm not getting my rocks off looking at said kids. I'm supervising my own son playing with a random group of kids. It's like moms are allowed to have this unkempt, run-down, tired as hell look and be considered a hardworking mom. Put an unkempt dad, run-down, tired as hell looking, and I'm a freaking child. Gives me the creeps, and now I have reservations about taking my kid to the park. And saying that any scruffy-looking man I see around a playground, I also go on high alert. Story 9. We hate rom-coms because it makes us cringe and stuff, or that we were just grumpy or whatever people assume. No, Karen, we don't hate them for that reason. We hate them because they put unrealistic expectations on men. In all those movies, they sacrifice jobs, college, etc. for a woman. We won't sacrifice a successful life so it can be at your ever beck and call. Story 10. That men can't be raped or assaulted primarily from the stereotype that we're bigger or slash stronger than women or always want to hook up. I want to punch anyone that spouts that ignorant crap. Just because I have a dick or am bigger than a woman doesn't mean she can't spike my drink, get me intoxicated with alcohol or drugs, or otherwise force herself on me against my consent. Stop dismissing rape and assault based on gender, creeps. Was drunk at a party and woke up in a coworker's bed. She had been making passes and I just assumed I had drank too much and agreed to it. Couldn't remember a single thing after we left the apartment to head to the bar. Turns out she dropped a bar of Xanax in my drink and I was bragging about it the next day at work. Wasn't even her first time doing it to people, I later found out, reported it to the police and had to sit there insisting on filing a report. Nothing ever happened with it and I checked out fine in the STD department, so I just let it go. But holy hell, was it an eye-opening experience. Empathize with every person that goes through the ordeal and doesn't have enough proof that it happened. Story 11. Two guys being close friends does not imply secret gay love. I'm looking at you, freaking fanfic writers who seem to think men showing any kind of affection for each other means they want to do each other up the ass. Women. Men need to be more open about their feelings. Men. Shows genuine friendship and affection with a male friend. Women. You're gay. This has happened to me so many times. I enjoy camping, and if there's one thing about backpacking or canoe camping is that the people you have along really make or break a trip. So over the years when I go camping with other people, it's usually with my best friend who is also male. The amount of crap we get about possibly being gay for each other while out camping is just plain exhausting. So many people think they thought of a new joke when they allude to two dudes going out camping together being gay. Why does everything need to be about sex? Story 12. We're not all just waiting for an opportunity. I hate that being male is enough in certain situations to make some women uncomfortable. I'm not following you. I'm not going to assault you for alone in an elevator. I'm going to stand away from the controls and keep my hands and eyes to myself. I cannot express fully the burning hatred I have of the animals that have given all men such a despicable reputation. Story 13. Men are only interested in one thing. Oh, really? Is that why I'm reading a book, playing a game, and getting dinner? Is that why I stopped talking to that girl after she went on and on about her reality shows being real? Story 14. I was in an abusive relationship for 2 years. I had my life controlled, I was isolated from my friends and family, and I shrunk to 120 pounds because of how little I was eating. I offered no help to anyone I talked to, even when she threatened to kill herself if I left. It hurts me when people act like the woman to man isn't a big deal or doesn't happen. When I've tried to talk about it, I get responses like, every guy claims their ex is crazy. Immediately downplayed. It also bugs me, and maybe this is specific to where I live, that in the current climate, everything is about demonizing men. I really went through hell with this girl, and after finally pulling through, I'm rewarded with being frequently antagonized and told my story doesn't matter. I understand the social climate isn't personal to me, but after going through what I did, it's very hard to hear. Story 15. That they don't need compliments. I hate it when I do it to my male friends and some other acquaintance will overhear and tease me for it. But when I do it to a female friend, nobody gives a creep. I believe that guys deserve to be complimented sincerely once in a while, like everybody else. I struggle a lot with self-esteem and self-worth. I started seeing someone lately. She gives me a lot of compliments, and I honestly don't really know how to handle it. I've never exactly gotten many compliments in my life, and when I asked a few people I know about it, they all admitted they thought I'm attractive. I was baffled. The thought that I could be good-looking is foreign to me precisely because I never get compliments of any kind. My other male friends feel pretty much the same way. Story 16. That men can't be on the receiving end of domestic violence, especially if their argument for saying so is something along the lines of, men are bigger and stronger than women, the man wouldn't lose. Something I've heard said on the topic way too much, including from my own mother, thinking that is sexist in both directions. I mean, at the very least, I'm pretty sure a pistol doesn't care if it was fired by a bodybuilder or an infant. The same goes for psychological abuse, which gets into something very closely related. Society telling guys to quote-unquote man up about something or someone harming them is a major part of why so many can't get help when they need it. Story 17. That emotional abuse isn't something we face too. We're often dismissed, discredited, or suffer in secret. Lots of men don't get help for this reason. that we can't say no. The perception is that we constantly want and if we don't want it, it's because there's something wrong with the person who is offering. Let no mean no for us too. That any objection to a relationship is proof of fear of commitment. If I'm explaining something that someone already knows, it's immediately construed as mansplaining. Guess what? Sometimes I'm trying to share information to help you, and you know that information. I made a bad assumption. It isn't because you're a woman, and it isn't because I think you're stupid. I might just be being condescending regardless of your gender. I might just be over explaining. Ask, I'll tell you. That it's okay for any woman to feel completely confident of telling me how I should be and what my partner wants in a relationship. Every woman is different and should be treated as an individual. Your tastes and values are different from every other person's, and as much as you know about women, you have never been a heterosexual male. Don't tell me how to be a man. I don't tell you how to be a woman. That every man shares common traits. I'm lumped in with every other person with a dick, and assumptions are made about me, my perceptions, and my behavior because I have a That boy growing up today doesn't experience shame at being a man. There are innocent people who have done nothing. They didn't ask for a dick. If your message is that everyone with a dick is evil, they internalize that. Story 18. That men are worse parents and less nurturing than women. It infuriates me how difficult it is for a good father to get full custody of his children in a divorce. My roommate is going through this right now. He's been in a custody battle for his daughter for almost a year. When his daughter was only 4 months old, his ex-wife, who was literally the worst person I have ever met out of every single human I have ever encountered personally, broke his daughter's left arm, spiral fracture on the upper arm. She and her boyfriend claimed that her arm got stuck in the crib and she tried to roll over and broke it herself, and so far every doctor we've talked to has told us that is simply not possible. So, bullcrap. A year later, he's still fighting this custody battle mainly because the caseworker who was assigned the case is extremely sexist against men and uses any and every chance to insinuate that my roommate is anything from a tweaked out meth head to a pedophile. Mainly because he loves his tattoos and has ink up and down his arms and chest. He is honestly the best father I've ever seen. My father walked out on me when I was 4, and I hope someday I can be even half the dad he is. We used to go out and hit the bars right after work, do stupid stuff, aka young guy things. The very day he was granted temporary custody of his daughter, he stopped drinking, smoking, and sleeping around. He sold his PS3 and flat screen so he could buy her a nice crib and decorate her room. A little while ago, he skipped on a Vegas trip with me and some friends because he needed to take her to a Yo Gabba Gabba concert thing because, good God, that little girl frickin' loves Yo Gabba Gabba. So much so that all 3 of us adults in the house have the songs memorized, and now we have a giant Broby doll and a Gabba posters all over our living room. So please, please, please do not judge a book by its cover and never ever subscribe to the idiotic belief that men are subpar parents. Story 19. That if you're not into at least one type of sport to the point of damn near obsession, then you're not really a quote-unquote a man. Okay, I like American football. Every Sunday that my favorite team plays is like a mini holiday to me. I buy decent beer, I make a nice meal to eat during the game, and I try to wear a t-shirt with my favorite team's logo on it. But the next day, if you asked me about a specific play, there's a 50-50 chance that I won't remember it unless it was something really incredible. And I have no clue about any players or staff on any other team in the league unless they're a superstar. And I don't watch any other sports. I have zero interest in doing so. And I know that most of this makes me seem less manly in the eyes of a lot of people, even women. Same thing with outdoorsy stuff like hunting and fishing. I mean, I like fishing, but I didn't take it up until I was in my 40s. And I don't really know crap about it except for the extreme basics that are pretty much just common sense. I got into it mostly as a reason to get outside with my young son. Story 20. How men are on commercials. How we don't do laundry, cook, raise kids, or anything without our wives coming to show us how. Look, creeps, I'm single and I do all my own cleaning, laundry, dishes, etc. I have never stared at a mop like it was a plasma death ray, nor have I ever had to rush out to buy dinner because I burned mine. Well, a few times when drunk, but that's not the same thing. I also am capable of taking care of a baby without having to call a woman to give me directions. I don't have kids, but I do have younger cousins and whatnot. I can change a diaper and bottle feed just fine. Story 21. If a man compliments you, buys you a drink, or shows you positive attention, they just want to get in your pants. This has always pissed me off. I think neither men nor women get enough compliments. Compliments always give people an ego boost, and if you're a woman who looks hot, I might stop and tell you that you look nice. If you're working out and you got a nice build, man or a woman, I might stop by and tell them that they look good and keep up the hard work. It doesn't mean I'm looking for a one-nighter, a phone number, or a relationship. I just thought you should get some feedback so you know your hard work or choices are paying off. Story 22. That, as a man and a father, I'm incapable of changing diapers, feeding and nurturing my children, taking my kids to the park, generally clueless when it comes to making decisions about household matters, can't grocery shop, can't sew or cook, and generally have no clue what to do with my kids/house/money. Society expects us to be emotionless, never-ending sources of money and labor. Thank you, mass media, commercials, sitcoms, magazines of the past 3 decades. I'm every bit as capable as my wife. Story 23. That men think about sex every 7 seconds. Freaking this. My fiance is astounded by how much I don't think about sex. She thinks something is wrong with me to not fulfill this kind of stereotype. My girlfriend is impressed by how easy it is to derail me from thoughts. Nothing ruins the mood more than me anchoring on the spot while she's trying to drag me to bed and I see a shade of blue from her collection of jackets that really appeals to me. I really like that shade of blue. I wish I had it as a pen or as a crayon. Not really a crayon though, no applicable use in my current days, but a pen would be really handy. Maybe even a coloring pencil with a matching stencil. I wonder too if that shade of blue would look great on jeans. Would it last long though, since darker jeans tend to fade a bit faster? Story 24. It's not that we don't understand that you want us to just listen and not fix your problems. We do. It's just that your emotions regarding them are incorrect or inappropriate, and your coping mechanisms are maladaptive and time-wasting. But we already know the solutions. We just want some empathy and understanding. Then why do you keep having the same problems over and over again? Story 25. Never show a man you are interested, he prefers to work for it. If I ever got the feeling a woman was not into me, I would just immediately stop pursuing her. If I got mixed signals, I would always doubt myself and be conflicted and anxious about pursuing her. If she gave me clear green lights that she was interested in, that was when I was most excited, enthusiastic, and happy. I'm an adult. I don't want to play head games. I just want an adult relationship. Yes, I agree that you don't want a woman who is too easy to get. There is fun in the chase, but she needs to give some actual indication that she's interested and wants you to pursue her, that she is interested in a relationship too. She can't give you the cold shoulder or blow you off and reasonably expect you to keep going after her. Story 26. That only men can abuse women in relationships, and if you find yourself in a situation where you are being abused, it's your own damn fault for not being manly enough. Not all men are naturally dominant, and the non-dominant ones can be put through hell because they feel like there is no support in most communities for a man being abused by a wife or a girlfriend. Dominance does not protect you from abuse. Break down their victim's sense of self-worth and make them feel as if they deserve it. Physical abuse usually doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's typically preceded by emotional abuse, which serves to make the victim more likely to accept it. Story 27. I can't really remember a lot of my first experiences with stereotypes and myths, but I think one of the first ones is that guys are always interested in no matter what their age. When I was younger, I remember interactions with older women. They were always flirtatious and very touchy. It was incredibly confusing for me at a young age, and I wasn't sure if I was supposed to enjoy what was happening. When I was around 13, I went to a party. I had not really come into my own yet with interactions with the opposite sex. Still awkward and introverted. As soon as I got there, 2 girls I didn't know jumped me. They had apparently been doing a bit of stalking and had some strange intentions upon meeting me and pinned me to the ground, as in physically knocked me over and pinned me. I was completely freaked out and had no clue what to do. I attempted to get up while not hurting the girl. The other one hung onto my back as the other one tried to pull me down. I eventually got away and locked myself in the bathroom to the sound of everyone laughing and thinking it was hilarious. I was shell-shocked and put on act that everything was fine. When asked about this, the biggest question I get is that because I am a male and I obviously have superior size and strength, I can't lie about the fact that I was most likely stronger than these 2 girls, but it isn't always about that. I was raised in a household where the majority was female. I'm the only son. And ever since I was little, I was told I would grow to be bigger and stronger than any female, and I could never use this against them. Even if they were beating the crap out of me, I could not respond with anything, otherwise I would be harshly reprimanded for defending myself. This, along with the traditional suck it up and show no emotions or otherwise you are weak, is incredibly ingrained in me. Moving forward into college, I was dating a girl who was about 5 or 6 years older than me. She wanted to move incredibly fast, but not having the experience, I was nervous. We would hang out in my room and watch movies, and when things got heavier, I would stop. She would complain and be disappointed, and I felt very guilty about it every time. I tried to move forward, but wasn't comfortable. I used the excuse that I didn't have a condom, so it wasn't a good idea. This can only hold out for so long, though. It was another night in my room, and she was fed up. She slapped me across the face, like hard. I don't really remember what she said next. Maybe I don't want to, but it basically made me feel so bad and insecure about myself that, well, yeah. This has affected every single relationship I have been in since. The women I'm with don't understand why I have issues and get incredibly nervous the first few times until I'm comfortable with them. It really strains a relationship and it hurts. The worst thing about this is because of preconceived notions about my gender and race, white male, that I have no right to complain about any of this. I do agree that I am very privileged in certain ways, and I am thankful for that. I suffer from anxiety and depression. My family has a history of substance abuse too. And people don't believe me when I tell them about my past, and instead of comforting me, they interrogate me. They usually don't seem to believe me. This, plus the fact that I can't get it out of my head that I'm weak if I can't pull myself out of this, leads me to be horribly alienated. It makes me feel awful every day, and I put on that mask that none of this affects me. It's just incredibly draining. I've alienated myself from family and friends, so they won't see how weak I am and how I can't prop myself up and be happy and see that I shouldn't have any issues. Worst of all, I just hate myself. People often don't seem to understand suicidal intentions. It's easier to grasp if I put it like this. Imagine the person you hate the most in the world, someone you might even kill if you had the chance. Now imagine if that person is you. I have basically resigned to the fact that I will be alone and most likely kill myself before the age of 50. And sometimes I sit in my room and cry, but I try to do it not too loudly, just in case someone hears. These are the stereotypes that infuriate me. Story 28. If I'm with my daughter, I'm not babysitting, I'm being a father. Aw, are you stuck playing dad today? No, dumbass. I'm a dad and there's nothing else I'd rather be doing.
Men. What's a myth about men that's 100% untrue and it infuriates you whenever you hear it? You know what? I did give a crap about my wedding day. I cannot believe the amount of people, mostly ladies, who just straight up assumed, all you have to remember is where to be and to say I do, right? Ha 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 ha. Freaking annoying. I had ideas of how I wanted it to look and how I wanted it to go as well, but my goodness, not a single person thought I gave a crap even though I constantly was trying to give my take on stuff. It was always met with, oh, you don't need to worry about that, or, oh, the ladies will figure that out. Like, this is infuriating. I'm convinced the phrase, the ladies will figure that out, is code for, we're going to do whatever we want, and if you complain, you're a groomzilla. Story 2. That men can be victims from women. Yeah, we can. And statistically, if we report it, there is a solid chance that we'll be the ones going to jail for it, even if all we did was take it and not fight back. Screw that. Story 3. I freaking hate the dirty looks I get from mothers when I take my child to the playground. For some reason, I am considered a criminal first before a responsible parent. Yes, I'm staring at the play equipment covered in kids. I'm supervising my own son playing with a random group of kids. It's like mums are allowed to have this unkept, rundown, tired as heck look and be considered a hardworking mum. But an unkept dad, rundown, tired as heck looking, and I'm freaking criminal. Give me the craps, and now I have reservations about taking my kid to the park. In saying that, any scruffy-looking man I see around a playground, I go on high alert. Story 4. That if you're not into at least one type of sport, to the point of damn near obsession, then you're not really a man. Okay, I like American football. Every Sunday that my favorite team plays is like a mini holiday to me. I buy decent beer, I make a nice meal to eat during the game, and I try to wear a t-shirt with my favorite team's logo on it. But the next day, if you ask me about a specific play, there's a 50-50 chance that I won't remember it unless it was something really incredible. And I have no clue about any players or staff on any other team in the league unless they're a superstar. And I don't watch any other sports. I have zero interest in doing so. And I know that most of this makes me seem less manly in the eyes of a lot of people, even women. Same thing with outdoorsy crap like hunting and fishing. I mean, I like fishing, but I didn't take it up until I was in my 40s. And I don't really know crap about it except for the extreme basics that's pretty much just common sense. I go into it mostly as a reason to get outside with my young son. Story 5. That men can be on the receiving end of violence, especially if their argument for saying so is something along the lines of, Men are bigger and stronger than women. The man wouldn't lose. Something I've heard said on the topic way too much, including from my own mother, thinking that is sexist in both directions. I mean, at the very least, I'm pretty sure a weapon doesn't care if it was fired by a bodybuilder or an infant. The same goes for psychological mistreatment, which gets into something very closely related. Society telling guys to man up about something or someone harming them is a major part of why so many can't get help when they need it. Story 6. I was in a cruel relationship for 2 years. I had my life controlled, I was isolated from my friends and family, and I shrunk to 120 pounds because of how little I was eating. I was offered no help to anyone I talked to. Even when she threatened to end herself if I left, it hurts me when people act like women demand cruelty isn't a big deal or doesn't happen. When I've tried to talk about it, I get responses like, "Every guy claims their ex is crazy." Immediately downplayed. It also bugs me, and maybe this is specific to where I live, that in the current climate, everything is about demonizing men. I really went through hell with this girl. And after finally pulling through, I'm rewarded with being frequently antagonized and told my story doesn't matter. I understand the social climate isn't personal to me, but after going through what I did, it's very hard to hear. Story 7. That emotional cruelty isn't something we face too. We're often dismissed, discredited, or suffer in secret. Lots of men don't get help for this reason, and we can't say no. The perception is that we constantly want intimacy, and if we don't want it, it's because there's something wrong with a person who's offering intimacy. Let no mean no for us too. That any objection to a relationship is proof of fear of commitment. That if I'm explaining something that someone already knows, it's immediately construed as mansplaining. Guess what? Sometimes I'm trying to share information to help, and you know that information. I made a bad assumption. It isn't because you're a woman, and it isn't because I think you're stupid. I might just be being condescending regardless of your gender. I might just be over-explaining. Ask. I'll tell you. That it's okay for any woman to feel completely confident to tell me how I should be and what my partner wants in a relationship. Every woman is different and should be treated as an individual. Your tastes and values are different from every other person's, and as much as you know about women, you've never been a heterosexual male. Don't tell me how to be a man. I don't tell you how to be a woman. But every man shares common traits. I'm lumped in with every person and assumptions are made about me, my perceptions, and my behavior because I am a man. The boys growing up today don't experience shame at being a man. They are innocent people who have done nothing. They didn't ask to be a man. If your messaging is that every man is evil, they internalize that. Story 8. That we are all criminals at heart. The men had some kind of institutionalized privilege back in the day. Passing away from black lung in the coal mines or getting gassed in the trenches in World War I is not privilege. Driving a pickup truck or owning a weapon or doing anything masculine means we have a small thing. Stop thinking about our things so much. The men can be mistreated. On TV, slapping a woman is cruelty. Slapping a man is comedy. That for men, intimacy is just a physical release. We have it for fun and it controls our every move. Intimacy is deeper than that for us. If a woman craves intimacy and seeks it out, she's sometimes called a witch, but sometimes she's called an assertive, strong woman who goes out and gets what she wants. If a man craves intimacy and seeks it out, he's usually just another intimacy-crazed criminal. There's also a misconception about dating. For men, dating can be very dangerous. We're always at risk of being thrown in jail and having our lives ruined. Any woman who doesn't acknowledge this is sexist. The list could go on for hours, but I have to go to work as a nurse who is male, so I've pretty much got to put up with crap that women would consider sexist. Story 9. I'm not a male, but I know a few of the myths that I know are BS. If a guy is into a younger woman, he's a kiddie fiddler. That one probably isn't as common, but I'm in a relationship and he's older than me by 2 years, and people consistently call him a kiddie fiddler since he's 19 and I'm 17. Consider we've been dating since he was 16 and now he's 14. That's a common one for younger relationships. Intimacy is all guys want. Bullcrap. Multiple guys I've met just want a friend or a relationship that makes them happy. It's not all desire. The whole chase thing is stupid. No, I'm not going to lead a guy on for months when I don't freaking have interest in him. That's hurting him and me. Getting at random means desire. Again, no, it doesn't. You can legit have one for no reason and you're like, what the heck are you doing? And your thing is like, I don't know. Women with assumptions make me sad. It's freaking infuriating when people say that men are always the oppressor in cruel relationships. Like you're so freaking far from the truth, it's not even funny. It's both sides, not just the male. Like, yeah, sure, a man can do damage to a woman pretty easily, but that doesn't mean the women can't do damage either. I know I'm not a male, but I hang around males more than females because screw the females. But that's crap I've heard over and over from other girls, and it's just infuriating because I know the damn truth. If I did get anything wrong, don't tell me off. I'm going off of my experience and from what 99% of the guys I know tell me. Story 10. that all of us mansplain. Sometimes I get freaking stupid questions or comments that require attention. After probing, it's clear that the person doesn't have a clue what he or she is saying. Errors from this kind of incompetence can be very expensive or cause legal troubles. One woman, the daughter of a senior person's friend, was critically wrong about a basic process. DCF, if anyone's interested, you just assume everyone knows. It was a very basic task for a new person to get them acclimated and to be helpful. As her appointed mentor, she would often check in with me before sending it off to her MD. And I got back a bunch of mangled numbers that made absolutely zero sense from the base numbers, no matter what you did to the process. I scheduled a meeting to teach her the model and how to do it. I did this discreetly, because distributing what she gave me would have caused heads to roll. She was aggravated and started telling me off about mansplaining and that just because her numbers were different doesn't mean they were wrong. There was a 99.999999% chance they were wrong. If they were right, she didn't get to them the right way. Doing it the right way really does matter a lot. She ended up pivoting careers, which is the best move if you're not open to learning from mistakes. I know guys mansplain, but I've seen the term thrown around more from prideful idiots than used properly. Story 11. I've had several women say to me, "You can understand this. You're a man." What was especially infuriating was the time it related to safety. In a conference where we were deciding safety topics at work, I got bluntly told my opinion literally did not matter because I'm a man, and they were women. Like, look, if someone wants to rob me, hurt me, end me in 2019, they're going to come with a taser, a weapon, something. I'm not going to be freaking bare knuckles brawling with someone in the street to prevent a crime. I understand that there are issues women face that men don't, in similar volumes, but the assumption that men are somehow safer than women made me so angry I left that committee and refused to participate. Story 12. Men have no interest in being part of wedding planning. Like, what the heck? I love my soon-to-be fiancé. I want her to love our wedding. Yes, it's her day, but it's also my day. More to the point, it's our day. We're about to have a ceremony and party commemorating a commitment to spend our lives together, so why wouldn't I be a partner in planning a ceremony or party memorializing a partnership? But people comment when my girlfriend and I go to a wedding expo together. I went to one by myself yesterday. My girlfriend was busy with work to gather info and options. And while 80 to 90% of the brides were there by themselves, it was weird for me to be there by myself. I had to ask for raffle tickets from multiple vendors that they were handing out automatically to brides at the end of the table conversations. And despite having the same ticket for entry as everyone else, I wasn't eligible to win the $4,000 grand prize package at the end. It was only for brides who were still present in the room, even though a free honeymoon to Paris and some wedding planning or wedding services would have been equally useful to or wanted by me. I'm not a men's right activist, and I'm not going to make a formal issue of this, but technically that violated several provisions of my state's anti-discrimination laws, which prohibits discriminating based on gender, marital status, and orientation. I was told if I was in a same-gender relationship, I could win. Of course, I joined my girlfriend for conversations with a goldsmith about wedding rings to go with the engagement ring. I'm wearing one too. It's a symbol for both of us. I'm really excited to be getting engaged. I'm really excited to be getting married. I'm excited about planning the wedding together and planning our lives together. And I just don't understand the notion that the only involvement a groom has is to wear a rented tuxedo selected by his bride and to show up at the wedding to read a pre-selected script. Story 13. I have a few. Happened to me last night. Because I talk to a woman doesn't mean I want to fool around with her. Sometimes I'm just trying to be nice, or helpful, or just make a new friend. Oh, and on that note, I'm not attracted to every girl who breathes, or is thought of as hot by other guys. On that, just because a guy likes something more girly makes him no less of a straight guy than would make a straight woman more of a guy for liking guy things. I don't hate or am homophobic of gay men because I am straight. I honestly think gay people make some of the best friends. I like to mentor young people because most of my life I didn't have that. I did get the rare good soul and feel I should return the favor. I'm not being creepy as the world thinks. I have no interest in these kids. Keyword. Other than seeing them grow up better and healthier than I got to. Also, don't assume I could fix your car. I mean, I can, but don't assume it. The talking to a woman minefield. It's like navigating a social landmine while juggling flaming bowling pins. One wrong move and bam. You're trying to fool around. Story 14. I'm a dad with 3 young kids under 5. I also have a full-time job, as does my wife. Because of how our schedules work out, there are a few days a week where they're home with me while my wife's at work. Every freaking daddy duty line or someone asking me how I'm getting by babysitting or making a joke about what a mess the house must be or how I better not let the kids burn the house down just makes me want to punch the person who says it. Yeah, it's hard. Some days it's really freaking hard. I'm always tired. I'm always behind on things I'd like to do. But you know what? Nobody says that crap to my wife. It's not babysitting. I'm a freaking parent. I even get funny looks when I'm alone at the grocery store with my own damn kids. Like people are watching a chimp that's been trained to perform some kind of amazing trick. The stigma about male parents, about goofy, inept dads, about me needing to be rescued from being alone with my own kids. It really makes me mad every time. Story 15. At any time we're stressed out by expectations of us, it's toxic masculinity in play. We can get stressed out by expectations placed on us by women, by LGBT people, etc. Some of those expectations are modern constructs. Some of them are completely personalized. Both men and women often have expectations placed upon them either by society or by individuals. That masculinity is necessarily toxic, fragile, or needs to be abolished. One of the most important concepts of masculinity is that men are tough and can handle stress like diamonds. We need this concept because expectations are placed on us a lot. One bit about men that's 100% true is that we work more often, are placed in danger more often, are more likely to suffer violent crime, be incarcerated, and pass away early. It's not toxic for us to idealize stoicism. It is a necessary psychological defense mechanism for us to cope with a world which is objectively less protective and forgiving of us than of women. Story 16. The men and women can't be friends. Maybe they can't in general cases, but for me, I can. I had 2 sisters growing up. I got along well with both women and men. Through work, I became good friends with 2 coworkers, both in very serious relationships, one getting married, and I'm great friends with their SOs as well. Yet still, people at work thought we were fooling around because we would talk at our desks a little more than I guess they thought appropriate. Then some other guys in my office that I'm friends with, "Oh, you like her, huh? Wink, wink." And even when I reply, "No, we're great friends, but I don't see them in that way. They're in relationships with people that I would never mess with regardless. They're super nice guys." And they just reply with, "Oh, Jim and Pam." Like, yep, that's my only option, right? Either I'm ruining someone's relationship or waiting it out. No way in heck I could just be friends with them, right? Story 17. That masculinity, loud, blustering machismo, it's mostly other guys who believe it, though there are plenty of women who do as well. Among the most sensitive and soft-spoken guys I know are a few SF soldiers. 2 retired, 1 still active duty. A man who worked with his hands, mostly outdoors for over 60 years and can fix literally anything he's had the urge to. A modern computer, a building foundation, an air conditioner, a 70-year-old tractor, etc., etc. A retired commercial fishing boat captain and a retired lumberjack. Without exception, each of those guys would rather talk about how cute their kids or grandkids are, or were before they grew up, than trade tall tales about personal accomplishments or get hammered and start a fight. The active duty Green Beret I mentioned, his favorite thing in the world to do is have a tea party with his daughter. Story 18. That men will never step up to raise someone else's kid. I had 2 stepdads in my life, both of which raised me better than my dad did for the brief time I had with him. Stepdad number 1 was there for most of my childhood, probably starting from the time I was 4. He treated me and my sister like his own kids, always spending time with us whenever he was available. He and my mom eventually split, and I bawled uncontrollably for 2 days. Stepdad number 2 rolled around just before I became a teenager, and as such provided a role model for those important years. He handled the laundry, did 90% of the cooking, and cleaning duties were usually split evenly throughout the house. I looked up to him for a long time, to the point that he was my view of the man I wanted to be. That was until he and my mom ended on a sour note, with him taking a large amount of money out of their shared bank account and using it to go back to his mother's house and use the rest to fuel his substance habit. He did a lot for me, but if I ever see that schmuck again, I'll roughen him up. Story 19. One thing that really makes me mad is how poorly displayed fathers are in TV or movies. Take Stranger Things as an example. Dustin's dad left, Will's dad is a manipulative schmuck, Ike's dad is lazy and useless, Hopper is shown to treat Eleven badly, Steve's dad is a schmuck, Axe's dad left, and Billy's dad is cruel. Meanwhile, the mothers are the ones who step up to the plate and are the strong points in the show and lead the way. Joyce Byers is cool, and I have no problem with awesome, powered female characters, but when all the fathers are seen as schmucks, it's incredibly discouraging to young boys. Story 20. That we're all the same and incapable of not cheating and being a good boyfriend. That we're all terrible and it is our responsibility to prove them wrong. Not true. What women mean is that all the men they go after are the same. I'm not even going to sit here and listen to you cry on my shoulder about how guys are all the same when it's clear that if that were true, you wouldn't be crying on my shoulder right now. I gave up even being friends with those women because I don't have time to be your gay best friend even though I'm clearly straight. Just because all the men you go after are womanizing mouth breathers with flashy cars says more about you than it does for men. You want a real man? Then go after one. Simple. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 21. That we're less of a man for treating our spouses as equals. I don't usually hear it to my face, but the guys my wife works with often make jokes about how she's got me wrapped around her finger since we treat each other with respect. E.g., neither of us drops over $100 without checking with each other, or we don't just arbitrarily say we're having a night out, etc. Sometimes I let it get to me because most of those man babies wouldn't have the first clue how to do half the manly things I've learned over the years. Fixing a car, patching a wall, replacing a toilet. Things these guys state are men's work. Yet these things are just skills and don't inherently make me a man. Treating my friends, family, loved ones, and especially my spouse with respect, well, that just might. Story 22. I have been mistreated. It messed me up just like it would with any other survivor up. Though people, all genders, respond in different ways. My apartment is far cleaner and I'm a much better cook than 100% of my female friends. It's not because I'm male or they're female or because I'm a neat freak, because I'm not. I just regularly clean my freaking apartment. They still crap on me when I make some food as if it's amazing that I'm able to feed myself. They patronizingly think it's cute when they noticed I ironed a shirt or something. Being the only male in a group of women is far worse than being the only woman in a group of men. Without question. The mistreatment starts from the word go. There was a period in my life where, by sheer accident of history, all of my friend group and most of my coworkers were female. I had to take breaks from them. I made fun of my clothes, my personal interests, and my personal hygiene, which is beyond reproach. Literally anything that was stereotypically male that I didn't do was met with some emasculating joke. Likewise, with anything that I did that was typically male. In fact, virtually all of the friendly jibes that most friends give each other took the form of some emasculating comment when directed at me. From a certain point of view, it was a fascinating insight into gendered social dynamics. Because before and after I was the only male, it stopped. But it really takes an emotional toll over time. These people were mostly enlightened. Pro-equality people, too. Story 23. That we can't cook, garden, clean, be empathetic or sympathetic, show our emotions, be honest with or compliment other guys, have gay friends and not be gay ourselves and enjoy being clean. I garden and I brought some of my midsummer harvest to my last family get-together on Saturday night to share. Not 30 minutes in, my male cousin asked me, "Why are you helping out your sister with her garden? You shouldn't have to do that." Or something similar. I was so confused. It finally clicked that he thought my sister grew my veggies that I brought and that I was being used by her to harvest them. I laughed and told him I wouldn't even let her near my zucchini. The complimenting other guys thing is hilarious. It's like, "Nice beard, Steve." Wait, did I just compliment a man? Am I changing? Cue existential dread. Story 24. That if we are friends with a woman we have fooled around in the past or are interested in them. Or that if we have lots of female friends who are so totally catty gay guys who wear outrageous outfits and always do brunch. I love my girlfriends because I care about them. I've had both life-changing moments with them and comfortable afternoons doing nothing. And yes, I do prefer men as partners, but that does not mean I only talk about that with women. I appreciate my boyfriends a lot because I can be a guy with them, and that includes who I like or date. It's not always about who we got to our beds with last night. I talk to my friends about who makes me happy, who breaks my heart, and who makes me want to have intimacy because they care about me. And they do so with me because I care about them. Our human bonds give us a reason to be alive and be a good person. It's freaking insensitive to assume we can't have meaningful connections with others just because we have a thing. Story 25. That every case of manspreading is an intentional male dominance move. Normally, I don't ever care to engage in arguments that are all over social media, but there is one that really bothers me. Manspreading. I saw a video of women going around buses and subways pouring water all over the men on their way to work. Minding their own business, but at the same time manspreading. The women were yelling at them that it's a dominance power move by men to claim their territory and there's no excuse for it. I avoid confrontation at all costs in public and I'm the last person to make a power move by purposefully spreading my legs while I'm sitting. But when I sit down, my legs do naturally fall outwards in a way that would be identified as manspreading. The men in the video are sitting the exact same way that I do. It's the comfortable, natural way for me to sit. If I sit with my knees together, it takes effort. And after 10 minutes, my legs will actually start to shake. My outer thighs are also not flexible enough to sit with my legs crossed, among other reasons. It just doesn't work. For someone like me to be accused of making a male power or dominance move to random female strangers is absolutely ridiculous. I'm a quiet, reserved introvert. If someone sits beside me, there's no way I want my leg to be pressed up against theirs either, so I'm not going to take up more than my fair space. People need to get over this manspreading crap and realize it's not a power move. Unless someone is actually spreading in a ridiculous way and taking up more than one seat, then mind your own business. A retaliation is for some women to bag spread, claiming that since we can't stop manspreading, there's no other way for them to transport the bags aside from over 3 seats in a packed bus. I've had to carry multiple bags and boxes in public transit before. Hold one, put one in your lap, at your feet, under your seat, at the baggage spot at the front of the bus, etc. Bag spreading is completely unnecessary and an arrogant form of feminist retaliation. Get over it. Man spreading in 99% of all accusations is a biological way for a man to sit. Story 26. I am deeply troubled with how often men are viewed as the transgressors in tense or strained social interactions between genders. Sometimes it's the woman pushing the guy into uncomfortable territory, or making inappropriate demands. In the same vein, I also take issue with the general cultural perception that men can't be victims of emotional or physical cruelty. I managed to fall into that perception, and I was the damned victim. It took me years to really process it and realize the impact it had on my romantic relationships. And now that I have, it feels like it's too late. Damage done, and I'm just playing out of the romance game. Story 27. The men who are vulnerable are weak. In my experience, the men who are open and honest about their struggles are the strong ones, more stable and more likely to stick with someone through hard times. The ones who bottle things up or put on facades of anger or apathy are the ones who are weak and harder to trust. I'm not saying anger and apathy aren't useful emotions. Anger helps you express your dissatisfaction or defend yourself or a loved one. Apathy can be useful in surviving a stressful situation as a method of de-escalation, but if you rely on those affections instead of addressing underlying issues, then you're just a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Story 28. Now we cannot have platonic female friends while also being in a committed relationship. No matter how many women pretend this is cool with them, ultimately almost all of them believe this is impossible and that it's just a matter of time before we our female friends. Or they say they're cool with it, but all of a sudden they're imposing all these rules designed to make it difficult for us to see these friends, such as that they have to also be involved every time or that we can't spend too much time with female friends, that they have to approve of the women we want to be friends with. I'm a grown adult. I can choose my partner and I can choose my friends. I'm in control of my own behavior and I'm not staying with my partner just because I'm barred from meeting anyone else. I've had good female friends while being single and also while being in long-term relationships, but not had intimacy with or done anything physical with those women. I've had women friends while I was single that I slept in the same bed with and sometimes even cuddled, with no implication of intimacy or anything other than friendship. I've had deep conversations with female friends about life, dating, and the world, without anything other than friendship developing. Get over it, ladies. We're capable of it. Some men enjoy female friends. Let us be. Story 29. I'll just make a list. We aren't emotional. Okay, so I'm still young and all that jazz, but being emotional is part of life. I feel happy, sad, the whole array. Just because I'm a boy doesn't mean I'm not going to cry when my heart is broken. You can't be parents. My dad is a great parent. He took care of me when he could because he worked and still works a 9-to-5 job. When he got his current job, he was terrified that he wouldn't have time for me or my sister. There's no such thing as daddy duty or babysitting when you're the freaking parent. We're always thinking about intimacy. No. Just no, okay? If someone pops us, then it's likely some weird flow unless we're in a scenario. We have to be uber buff and tall. My dad is 5'6" and I'm 5'8" currently. Height is genetic and cannot be controlled beyond the wilds of science, and not all of us are interested in being ripped. Personally, I like being healthy. I'm just not interested in the whole muscular thing. We're dumb. This really doesn't need an explanation. This stuff irks me beyond belief. Thanks for reading my ramblings. Story 30. The man can never be the victim. It's honestly a serious issue in my opinion. I once was at a club and I had a girlfriend at the time. I was in a corner because I was feeling a bit tired when this girl came up to me and grabbed my back. I honestly felt a little violated, but I didn't want to cause a scene, and also because my head was pounding like a drum, so I just told her I was taken. She kept insisting, grabbed it again, said, "Oh, come on, you like it," and so on. I finally told her I gotta go, and I left. While leaving, she called me a wuss. Honestly, I don't want to be that guy, but if the roles were reversed and I told the story, people would say I was downright mistreated. But because I'm a guy, I can't tell the story to people without people laughing and thinking it's a joke. Story 31. I'm a wife, but my mother-in-law is always saying how my husband shouldn't do anything around the house because he works. He hates it, and so do I. She never taught him how to do basic things like laundry or unclog a toilet. Been married 5 years, and he either learns for himself or I teach him all the house stuff so that we can both keep up with it all. He prefers to do all the laundry and gets mad if anyone else does it. Whenever my mother-in-law visits, she makes comments about how he works so hard, and I don't know how he manages to do it all, but really, she just is being super sexist. I wouldn't marry a man that didn't do his fair share or, heck, didn't do beyond when I'm having a hard time. It's a team. Story 32. We don't have emotions or even cry. We're just robots. It's BS. I got laid off about 6 years ago. I spent the better part of a month or two trying to find a job. Granted, I had unemployment up to a year, but I remember distinctly breaking down in my living room while filling out application after application, submitting my resume over and over again, making phone calls, emailing employers, even showing up in person and handing off my resume. My nights dissolved into binge drinking. After 2 months of feeling hopeless and not receiving a job, I burst out into tears for a good half hour on my couch. After pulling myself together, I decided to go to a temp agency, dress up, get my associate's degree out, and head down to the agency. I told them I specialize in IT but would take any job just to get my foot in the door of a company and make my own money. They would take a big risk for me. They got me a job in IT, and as of 6 years at this time of writing, I have a good job. Business is booming and I make a good amount of cash. Story 33. The man can't be hurt by words or looks or have undesirable directed at them can't hurt man or negative stereotypes don't affect man. This may be more of a bigger guy problem, but it still hurts like hell. I'm a pretty big guy. 6'3", almost 400 pounds. Even if I wasn't overweight, I'd still be a pretty big guy. My entire life I've had people, especially women, look back at me every few seconds because they're afraid I'm about to jump on them or hurt them. The last time I just took a stroll down my neighborhood, I had 4 different women either glare at me or look terrified of me. One other woman saw me, looked absolutely terrified, stopped moving. I was walking behind her by quite a distance and glared daggers at me until I passed her, and then she walked the opposite way. I even had a mother drag their kid into the house from outside until I left. I'd understand it a bit more if I wore leather and frowned the entire time, but I always try to smile as much as I can and wear something fun and lighter colored or anything to look non-threatening. I understand some people have gone through something in their lives that may make it hard to let their guard down around a man, but every single person? Even at my job, I work on taking care of people with mental and physical disabilities, and some of the people I'm supposed to help, I can't, because their guardian said, men are not allowed to provide them direct care. It hurts so much to try your best to be nice and kind, only to be looked at like a monster because of something I have no control over. And at this point, I don't know what else to do other than just stay in my house so I don't scare anyone. Story 34. That all men are mean, or that men don't cook, or that we don't have feelings. I love to cook. I know what I like and how I like it, so it's easier to make it myself than explain it to someone and then have them make it. Now, as I'm sure all of us can agree, there are some men that really are mean, but don't go assuming anything without getting to know the guy. Give him a chance. And if he does turn out to be mean, just leave it, and when you meet another guy, give him a chance too. Yes, we have feelings. No, we're not going to show them to you unless we're really close and we know we can trust you. The whole man up thing is such BS. Please understand this. We're fragile too. Only we choose not to show it for fear of judgment. Story 35. I'm late to the party, but I want to add something. Men don't joke about hating their wives because they're being sexist, hateful schmucks. They do it because there are serious problems in that household, and this is the only way the guy feels he can bring up the cruelty he's suffering without feeling like a little crybaby wuss. If a man tells you his wife is making life a living hell, maybe don't be so quick to blame the victim. Lots of sad people joke about the problem. Just look at all the depressives on social media being wise about their crap. Sometimes that's easier than just spilling your guts. I mean, maybe a few of them are just schmucks, law of averages, but don't assume is the point, because assuming the worst leaves a lot of people grappling with cruelty all alone. Story 36. Liking cute things automatically makes you gay. My cat is my baby, and I love watching stupid romance anime. I love playing games like Stardew Valley and My Time at Portia because they're just cute, calming games. I have sheep in SDV that I named Pillow, Blanky, Stuffy, because those are the things required to sleep comfortably. And I shamelessly admit I sleep with a stuffed animal at 24. I tell my cat every time she snuggles with me, I love my pretty Porpor. Her name is Porly Usica, but a lot of people have told me I gave her a bad name. It came from a fairy tale, an old gray-haired healer lady. I got my kitty because I was alone and super depressed. She was 5 years old at the shelter. The name fit. One of the best parts of my day is when I get home and I can hear Porpor literally shouting at the door because she heard me coming. I love super cutesy things. I have a t-shirt that is pastel colors with an anime cat girl on it. Vanilla from Nekopara. Don't know much about it, but cat girls are adorable. So many people have asked me, are you gay? Because I wear that shirt. No, I'm not gay. Are you a freaking judgmental person? Because you seem to be the type. Story 37. That we can take a joke in the context of women messing with their feelings. You all know what I'm talking about. It isn't funny. Just makes the man insecure and doubt the sincerity of any flirting directed at them in the future. Ladies, if you're ever flirting with a guy and he's not picking up the hint, there's a good chance some girl has at some point in his life, often middle or high school when girls are frequently at their worst, think it would be hilarious to flirt with him and then go, ew, you're just a creep. It was a joke. And so in his mind, any flirtation can't be real. It must be a joke. Lesson for the future, don't do this to guys. And don't teach or allow your daughters to do this to guys either. We internalize this sort of thing. It makes it very difficult to recognize sincere and genuine interest from women all throughout our lives. Story 38. That we can't cook, clean, or take care of babies. I'm a single dad and no family to help me out. I take care of my kids just fine. I cook pretty good damn meals and I can't stand a dirty or cluttered house. I bought an expensive washer and dryer because I clean laundry. True, I struggle with girly things like hair and art with my daughter, but she'll never need a man to change her tires or oil. The number one thing that really makes me mad is that women think men are incapable of loving their children all the same as a mother. I love my kids with a love that burns deep. Ever seen the movie Interstellar? My dad travels through a black hole, a water world, and into the fifth dimension for his kids. You think for a second I wouldn't do that for mine? You've heard of Mama Bear, but you better pray you never cross Daddy Bear. The last thing is that all men want is intimacy. I'm not even in my 30s yet and I'm single. I haven't been with another woman in almost a year. Not because I can't, but because I got way more going on. Raising children, work, planting vegetables, building tables, etc. Do I want it? Yeah. But is it the sole desire of my life that clouds any and all focus to the point I can't function without it? Not in the slightest. I got mouths to feed, bills to pay, shoes to buy. I don't have time to chase tail. I built my financial empire to pass on to my children and my sweet babies or grown adults. Maybe I'll take a breather and look for a mate, but until then, I have priorities and responsibilities. I'm not 22 anymore. Women. What's the dumbest thing a man has genuinely said or believed about women? I had a boyfriend who was very sympathetic about me going to the gyno for a checkup. I thought that was sweet, but then he said the only reason he knew it was that bad was because of his sister and stepsisters. Apparently, the boyfriend of one of his stepsisters was furious about that stepsister going to get her gyno checkup because he thought she was going to get SA'd and she'd like it. Apparently, they fought a lot about it. Can you believe that? What's crazy about that is that my ex-boyfriend said he would not have believed I needed to go get a gyno checkup if his stepsister didn't have that fight with her boyfriend. Story 2. I had a very spiritual ex who believed that most women were werewolves. Literal werewolves. Like that we would shapeshift during a full moon and run around terminating cattle. I thought he was kidding until we were dating for a few months and he very seriously told me he was beginning to trust me and more so trust that I was not, in fact, a werewolf. I was reassured by the fact that I didn't have the time of the month. I had an IUD and he said that's a woman's time of the month aligned with the moon and had to do with her shape-shifting werewolf cycle. He also thought that the fact I had an IUD meant that I was infertile for the rest of my life and was genuinely concerned how he would continue his bloodline if he stayed with me. I tried to explain these things to him, but he just got suspicious that I was covering up possible lycanthropy. He had issues. Story 3. Women only want the top 20% of men. BS that Reddit loves to regurgitate. It's all over the site. It's from old study in a dating app that is taken way out of context and used as a science for the real world when it shouldn't be. In the same study, women have a higher tendency to message men they don't rate high in attractiveness. Meanwhile, men tend to go for the women they rate high in attractiveness. This part is what is left out when Redditors complain. Story 4. The women get a crust or a scab if we have our time of the month. This took place in a biology lesson in high school. We could write our questions about anything we wanted and put them in a box anonymously, and the teacher would answer them. It was kind of a fun lesson, and it made the whole class open up about stuff, so we kind of started talking about body-related stuff with each other, and it pretty much ended up in a conversation between a group of boys asking the girls all kinds of questions. And that's when this one came out. I didn't know what I was hearing at first, but I don't know, it kind of made sense for him to think that. I just never thought about it before. I'm glad we don't creak every time we take a step during our time of the month, though. Story 5. Women always have tampons in. Story. A friend of a friend made a joke about tampons, and as the only girl in the group, he looked at me and said, "Am I right?" I told him I didn't know because I use cups. He couldn't grasp the concept. I told him, semi-joking, I'd show him mine the next day. He asked why I couldn't show him now. I told him it was because it was at home, and he said, "You don't have it in right now?" When I said I didn't because I wasn't currently on my time of the month, he said, "But what if you start?" This 30-something-year-old man had no idea that number 1, women can track their periods, and number 2, we don't walk around with tampons or cups in 24/7, 365. Story 6. I went through premature menopause at age 37. It's a real thing, but good luck convincing your gyno. Around that time, my dad got into his head that I was slacking in my duty to produce offspring. Now every time I see him, he brings up how I need to have kids soon because it's my duty and I'm getting kind of old. And I cannot convince him that even if I wanted to have kids, I could not, because I'm about 3 years postmenopausal. Over Thanksgiving dinner, I kid you not, he lectured me that his own mother had a baby years after she stopped doing that thing women do, and therefore I can totally still have kids. He cannot bring himself to say the words period or menopause, and yet believes firmly that they have nothing to do with fertility. And yes, the fact that he's pressuring me to have kids in the first place would be a stupid move, even if I wasn't infertile or hadn't been too sick to have kids for the past 15 years. Story 7. My ex-husband legitimately thought that whenever a woman has intimacy with a new partner, It makes her time of the month start in order to wash the old partner out of her system. He reached this stunning leap of logic after a lady he knew said she was going to a bar to celebrate her divorce and hoped she found a man to wash her ex out of her system. He decided that this meant I was cheating on him when I got my time of the month. It stopped early, we had intimacy, and then it started again. Story 8. My partner and I are well past 79 and have been together almost 20 years, but have known each other since we were kids. He never married, but was hugely, intimately active, having intimacy with more than 200 women. When we were first living together, he informed me that the double-layered panel in the garment is so we can slip a pad in there. I said, wait a minute, pads are not that small. He said, well, women fold them so they fit. I've been female more than 8 decades. I said, but that is so wasteful, and besides, that would be too bulky. But he insisted. Then I said, but what you were describing means we would do it all over the garments if we did that. The point is to put it into the pad. I told him I flatly didn't believe he had ever seen a woman use their pants that way, and I also don't believe any woman ever told him that. It's been years since he made this claim, and he's still angry at me for laughing at this idea. Story 9. This question makes me think of my father. He gave me his family material comforts and a privileged childhood to his kids, then would insult my brother and me for having our own ideas and opinions that differed from his. He believes he's a good person because he pulled himself up by his bootstraps and worked hard. You can still provide for your family and still be a Trump-supporting, Republican, racist, narcissistic piece of crap father who is filled with hate. The dumbest thing he said about me as a woman? I remember the sweet release of him from my life when he had our last phone conversation. Well, you just need to work on yourself and be better than you are. He said this to me when I told him that I voted for Bernie Sanders when he ran. Hi, I am a 41-year-old woman who doesn't fit into a box and has my own ideas and opinions. I don't cook. I am neurodivergent. I'm a liberal. Oh, and get this one too, Dad. I'm gay. I'm free today. Today is my Independence Day. My dad will never make me feel small or stupid or ashamed for being different. I'll no longer have ties with anyone that is cruel and full of hate. Story 10. Okay, this one is technically about a 14-year-old boy rather than a man. I, trans woman, was having a slumber party when I was 12, still living as a boy, and one of my friends' older brothers came by. It was all very cheesy stuff, playing quarters with RC Cola, etc. At one point, the 14-year-old boy said he wished his girlfriend, from Canada no less, were there. He said if she were, she'd be stuffing her full of tampons to get ready for him. Now, being a trans kid and absolutely obsessed with femininity, I understood just how monumentally stupid this boy was being, but I literally couldn't say anything without explaining the time of the month to a room full of boys. I've been carrying that story around for 40 years now. Thanks for asking. Story 11. I once knew a man who thought women laid an egg during their time of the month, and the color of said egg was determined by their mood. Also, inside the egg was a tiny baby, and the red liquid was its tears because it wasn't born. I kid you not, this man firmly believed this. I was very shocked, to say the least. He was going around the bathroom in a deranged egg hunt, demanding, "Where is it?" I thought he was a few tacos short of a combo plate, then he explained his views, and I knew he didn't have a menu. He also was a cruel schmuck, so there's that too. Story 12. By far not the worst, but I'm sure I'll be vindicated in the comments because I had no one else to be gobsmacked by. I want to attach a pic so bad, but it's not letting me. But my father disagrees that hip dips are real. Basically, back in the day, a photo of Barbara Palvin modeling for Sports Illustrated went viral and landed on my father's Facebook page. I'll never forget him saying that there was something weird going on with her hips. In one photo, and thus he isn't attracted to her anymore. Look at the image and it's her hip dips. Usually modeling agencies don't pose their models so it's prominent, but since she's in a literal bikini, it was impossible to hide since she was thicker than most models then. I laugh and explain what hip dips are and go to move on when my father looks quizzically and says, See, I don't know, but I'm going to have to disagree with you there. I've looked at women my entire life and I've never seen that. So I explain it's genetic, most models are too thin to have them, and they are hidden during photo shoots, but her hip dips were prominent since all the photos were in bikinis. I explain it's due to her pose and them taking the photo straight on, which just so happens to be the angle at which hip dips are prominent. I finish my point by saying, trust me, I'm a woman, it's more common than you think. And he replied, I've been checking women out for longer than you've been alive. It's not common nor normal. I've never seen that before. She has weird hips and therefore it's not attractive at all. The same way Megan Fox revealed she has a club thumb. They were gorgeous women, but they simply aren't attractive now. They've revealed these freaky facts about their anatomy. He just genuinely would not budge and was ready to argue that he was still right until he was blue in the face. I still think back to this conversation because it felt so unbelievably like a fever dream. Can't believe it actually happened. So yeah, there, girls. It's been decided. My father doesn't believe in hip dips, so if you have them, you're just weird and not attractive to your freaky anatomy. Story 13. This one is actually my favorite, and it is the dumbest one I've heard. I worked with a guy who asked me when I chose to be a woman. I'm a cisgender woman, and I said, do you think I'm trans? I wasn't offended, just a little shocked because he seemed so sincere and kind of nervous in asking. Lol. Nope, He thought, or was taught by family, that women taller than 5'7" were all hermaphrodites, intersex, and they chose to present as women because all natural women can grow taller than that. I'm 5'11". I said I was born a woman and not intersex, and that what he was taught was wildly incorrect. I'm not 100% sure he believed me, but I think it definitely did blow his mind enough that he probably looked into it. Lol. Story 14. Very early into my relationship with my fiance, I was explaining my family dynamics to him, and I mentioned that I was adopted by my aunt and uncle when I was 2 because my biological mom was 13 years old and in foster care when she had me. This man looked me straight in my eyes and said, "I didn't think you could get pregnant until you were like 16. So I very gently explained to him that no, it is in fact possible for a person to get pregnant from the moment they start having their time of the month. Technically, you can get pregnant before you even have your first one. We then proceeded to have a long conversation about all the ways his school's education program failed him. Story 15. That reading will have a negative impact on our organs. This was from Sandy Toxvig's talk early this year at Cambridge. I have this talk to thank because it made me go down the rabbit hole and opened up my eyes about a lot of things stacked up against women. I got so frustrated that I had to write this piece to get things off my chest. I've forgotten half of our histories and how women's achievements and stories have literally been left out. I'm 40, female, living in Bangkok, and it's still very embedded in our culture to uplift men, overly praise their achievements and hush-hush about their glaringly obvious misdeeds, and downplay women's involvement or achievements for fear of triggering their more fragile ego. And I hope my writing doesn't come across as hateful towards men. I've been together with my husband for over 17 years, and he's my everything, but I can't help but point out what I've observed over the years within my own circle. In Thai societies, or at least the one I'm privy to, it's the women who run the show, so to speak, or the logisticians and organizers who make things happen, but we let the men in the family take over the core narrative. Narcissism is rife in my network, and more so in men, and it's really quite fascinating how blind most of us are to this. I also admit being completely blind to it until it hit me in the face a few years ago. By my own observable stats, 50% of the dads I know have either used those massage parlor services, have a side girl, done a weekend, or just have a full-blown affair out in the open. It's completely normalized here in a way that you don't even talk about it. Story 16. I knew 2 real incels personally when I was in high school, and they actually did believe in all of this women-hating crap. One of them could be a case study with how fast he lost his fedora once he was 2 drinks in. It was scary. He went from apologizing for being a schmuck last Friday and asking me to let him pour me a drink to, all women are witches and it's freaking ridiculous how you're putting yourself out there and teasing men with your body only to then reject them. Now pour me a drink, which it's the woman's duty after all. His eyes also changed, like something clicked in him, but in a very bad way. He also stole my phone, and that's when I last saw him. The other one wasn't outright aggressive towards women, but was an alcoholic and had very sexist opinions in both men and women. He believed a man's strength is directly linked to how many other men he could harm, and a woman's value is based on how good she can cook. Both of them, by the way, were grown mid-20s dudes who hung out with high school-age kids and tried to hit on girls. Story 17. I had a guy I was seeing tell me completely randomly, "Did you know that the cycle isn't 28 days for every woman? There are some that have 27 days, some have 29 days, and some even more or less." He was acting like he just presented me the newest scientific discovery and like I should be astonished by that. In that moment, I thought it was funny, but later I was just amazed by the audacity to tell that to a woman, thinking he knew more about it than me. Like, how little do some men think women know? Also, he was a mechanical engineer and I'm a nurse. Like, what? Story 18. I used to be friends with this guy who genuinely thought people, especially women, shouldn't complain about getting essayed because it's just validation or a sign you're attractive. Apparently, objectification equals compliments in his galaxy-brained world. He also believed that once our stuff has been stretched by a large thing, it can never properly take a smaller one again. Also, according to him, nothing can ever go wrong during a pregnancy unless it's an ectopic one. I think it's safe to say I did myself a favor cutting him off when I did. His logic was like a black hole. Once you get too close, you just lose all common sense. On an extra note, I also had a different guy tell me, "I wish a hot woman would do that to me." I told him about the time I was stalked and followed by weirdo work for a whole hour before he walked towards me and exposed himself. So I then said to him, "So consent doesn't matter to you if the perpetrator is attractive?" And he just responded with, "I guess not. Lol." Story 19. The high maintenance thing. Now that I'm older, when I hear a man say this, I immediately know 3 things. It's manipulative, he's cheap, he's objectifying. Often women are labeled this way by men who don't have the capacity to handle it and or want to have a commitment-free, low-key relationship. Even if that's what I want, a man who says things like that is a red flag. High maintenance can mean all sorts of things, but some men will say this because they will never take you out to a steak dinner. Others will say it because they want to be able to relax if they take you camping. Neither of these things are horrible, but there are better ways to communicate your expectations besides calling someone high maintenance. High maintenance can mean different things, but in general, it seems to imply that the person labeled this might not be worth the effort to date them. If they actually have some experience with a person and realize that this is beyond their capability, that's one thing, but labeling someone is not okay. I've never been labeled high maintenance, but I have basically been told I was not low maintenance enough, which was a gift. Story 20. My coworker once explained to me that since I have turned 30, my cycle, meaning my period, I don't think he even knew what he meant, is going to expire and my eggs would dry up soon. It goes on to explain how women's hormones sync with the moon and environment around them. This is why women in countries like India have more children. The woman's uterus is closer to the moon in countries further north from us, and their periods are like tides and produce more eggs. I asked him to further elaborate, and he said he didn't want to talk about gross stuff like this anymore. He now has a 1-year-old daughter. This is one example. Anytime he's late and I call him out, his literal response is, "Well, you don't have kids." I usually respond with, "Nope, just hella disposable income. Welcome to the sales world, bro." Story 21. A recent one was at work for me. I'm a waitress and I was clearing dishes off tables when someone else's customer waved me over to him. By the time I made it to his table, just him, he had laid his head flat on the table, staring intensely at a table in another coworker's section. "Need anything?" He pointed at a table in the distance with his head still on the table. "You ladies aren't cleaning these tables very well." "Oh, well, that one's still dirty. Someone just He picked his head up and cut me off. You can't see it from your angle, but there are cup rings on all of the tables. Spoiler, there weren't. You want me to wipe your table down? No, mine's fine. All of the others are dirty, though. He then proceeded to explain and demonstrate in the air the proper motion to use when wiping off a table. I was trying to manage my facial expression so it didn't come off rudely, but it must have come off as confused or something because he got frustrated and tried to repeat his spiel on how towels work, so I shot him a "sorry about that, I'll make sure to tell someone," and left. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 23. When I was in college, getting my BFA in studio art, I worked as a stage carpenter in my school's theater. Started doing it in high school, so by the time I was a senior, I had a few years' experience. I had a friend who was a student in my school's conservatory, and his senior project was an opera that he wrote with another senior. At the beginning of the year, he asked me to be the set designer and TD for the show. It was a smaller production, and I had a few other students that I took on to help me, so I said yes. Fast forward to Tech Week, the week before the show opens. Between runs, I went to the nearby hardware store to pick up a few things that I didn't have on location, including a cheap brush for touch-ups. So even though I'm dressed in obvious carpenter clothing, jeans with lots of worn areas and completely covered in paint, steel-toed boots, etc., I'm a girl in a hardware store. Part of me always expects an employee to ask if I need help because, hey, it's their job. And also I'm a girl in a hardware store. Most of the time the interactions are pleasant, but a few times I've definitely been treated like a girl who knows nothing. This time I'm running in and out, and I've been to this hardware store before and I know exactly what I need and where it is. I get to the paint section and step back from the row so I can see what they have, while I weigh what brush will work best for what I need at the cheapest price. An older man who's not an employee is in the same aisle. He asks me what I'm looking for. I'm in a bit of a rush and I don't need help, so I give a kind of non-answer, something like, "Just a paintbrush." This man proceeds to tell little old me, with paint in her hair and on her clothes, about the different types of paintbrushes and starts making suggestions to me, even though he has no idea what I need it for. When I reach for a cheap touch-up brush, he proceeds to tell me the colloquial name for it and that it's a cheap brush that you can just throw away after you're done. I'm still completely baffled by the way he talked to me, like I was unrecognizable as a professional. I know this isn't even that bad when it comes to being a woman in a hardware store. Story 24. I became a TV producer at a young age. I had a small crew and we were hired to film behind the scenes in another production. I didn't have an assistant, so I took care of getting on camera releases from the other crew, the one we were there to film. One of the camera operators refused to sign, telling me he was part of the actors union and he wouldn't sign without his agent. That's cool, I get it. So I announced to my crew to avoid filming him. He called me over and explained to me how to do my job. Next time, the right response would be to go get your producer and have him handle it. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "I am the producer." And damn did it feel good to see him go white as a ghost. It's a small industry I work in. He harmed himself in the foot that day. Story 25. I'm a specialized translator from English to French, and I have a bachelor's degree in translation. A man who did not study translation as intermediate in English tried to explain to me how I did my translation wrong. I then explained to him how 3 words in English can be translated by only 2 words in French because, in French, one of the 2 words carries 2 meanings at once. Just because you speak a little of another language does not make you able to translate it. That is why I studied translation for 3 years. That guy does not know enough English to have a conversation. A classical example of a man who knows nothing about my job or field of study and tried to explain to me my job or field of study. Story 26. I manage restaurants for a living. One time, this guy ordered a soup to go. When I gave it to him, he told me that the soup is larger when he orders it when he's dining in. I explained to him that it's a 5-ounce portion. The bowl just looks larger when it's for dine-in guests because, well, that's how it's designed. He argued with me for long enough that I got the 5-ounce ladle and brought it full of soup in an empty soup cup to go, ladled it into a bowl for dine-in and then into the to-go soup cup, and he still didn't believe me. He refuses to leave, so I went to get him another soup to go in the house to get rid of him. The male manager I worked alongside asked what I was doing, so I told him, and he went and just told the guy, "That's the same size as when you eat it here." The guy thanked him and left, without the extra soup, because all he needed was another man to say it. Story 27. This will get buried, but I'm a female assistant editor for film and TV. It's a very technical job. It requires a lot of organization and experience. You work side by side with the editor, and above both of you is a post supervisor who manages the department. Post supervisors are almost always wannabe editors who failed up. They have technical skills, but usually no drive or creativity. They are almost always excellent at letting assistants do their work and solve their problems and then taking the credit. They're also excellent at sidestepping blame when something goes wrong. I've never met one I liked. At any rate, I'm on a job, and the soup is probably the biggest tool I've ever met. Plus, he understands jack all about the workflow. At one point, as we're finishing a movie, he asks the open office why a film is split into 20-minute reels during finishing. I explain that so minor adjustments can be made at the last minute to have one reel without affecting others. Can't believe I have to explain this to someone who has supposedly done this for 20 years or whatever. A few days later, he's giving a producer a walkthrough, and I overhear him explaining that he's guiding us through the important step of splitting the film into reels and why it needs to be done. A few days later, that producer calls me and explains to me that another movie of theirs is entering post and how important it is to split it into reels. The kicker was, a pre-production meeting on the next movie where that freaking post supervisor started explaining to me what reels were. And that's the film industry for women. Story 28. When I was pregnant with my daughter, my boyfriend told me that he wasn't taking me to the hospital until my water had broken. Now I had a son from a previous relationship, and when I gave birth to my son, I had to have the doctor break my water for me. I told my boyfriend that my water would probably not break on its own, and he would be taking me to the hospital when my contractions got to be 1 minute long, every 5 minutes, for 1 hour. 151 rule. He then tried to explain to me that my water would break before I went into labor, so we wouldn't have to worry about the 151 rule. Well, when I was in labor with my daughter, I felt super vindicated when he watched as the doctor broke my water for me. Story 29. Okay, this one is pretty goofy, but I dated a guy who ended up throwing an actual temper tantrum because he told me anime was invented in the 70s. A date I'm pretty sure he pulled out of his bum. I was an art student at the time who was very interested in the history of cartooning, animation, comics, and manga, so I knew right away that wasn't right. Osamu Tezuka, also known as the godfather of anime, published some of his first works around 1945. I showed him examples from all sorts of artists from every decade, and he literally locked himself in the basement and refused to talk to me the rest of the night. Story 30. I was an intern for a tech company, having just graduated with my BA in computer science with a minor in business. I sat next to a dude in a bus going to an event who, without knowing what my degree was, told me that BAs in computer science are totally pointless and one should only get a BS, especially for developers, blah blah blah. Now for any outsiders here, the difference between a BA and BS in computer science is not necessarily the coding classes, but actually what math classes you take. You take more math with a BS and a few more engineering courses. It's pretty easy to take the same amount of coding classes between the two. I chose to get a BA so I would have time to get a business minor and make myself more marketable for management roles and analytics as well. I gave him a look that could terminate someone and told him, BS on his BS. I was about to get a job at the company, and I was furious this dude was acting like such a schmuck. Story 31. A signature. I digitally signed a document and emailed it to him. He answered that I did not sign the document, which is a thing that happens frequently because loads of agencies still can't accept digital signatures. So I replied with my standard, the document is digitally signed. Is that okay, or do you need a wet signature? I received back a long, rambly email explaining to me what a signature was, how historically, in business, a signature signifies that a person gives their approval to whatever is included in the document and how one should sign their name. I think I read it 3 times before calling my friend in, who read it and said, that guy just told you how to write your name at the bottom of the paper. Story 32. I was packaging meat. Exciting, I know. Anyway, I was packing 6 sausage links to a bag before placing them to my left for the next step, where they got sealed. This was assembly line type work. You do your job and the next person does theirs and so on and so forth. Well, of course, the people before me were finishing earlier than me, as I was the second to last step. The guy who was cutting the sausage right before me finished, then looked around. He noticed me and came over to help me. Came over, saw how I was packing the meat, and then told me I was doing it wrong. He then had the audacity to tell me how to pack the sausages. By the way, I had already packed about 70 of the 80 to 85 bags that were getting done that day. So now, as I was continuing to package the sausage, I had him next to me, mansplaining in my ear exactly how to package the meat. And his words, of course, mimicked exactly what I had been doing all along. And his words were just reflecting my exact motions. Worst, or best, part, I told him to stop mansplaining to me, only to have him tell me he's not, and then have him mansplain to me what mansplaining actually is. Story 33. My nationality. So I look pretty ethnically ambiguous. People guess or assume that I'm Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, or Hispanic at pretty much the same frequency. My friend and I were once traveling through Serbia last year and got to talking with an old man on the train. He asked us where we were from, and I explained that my friend is from Finland, but we both live and study in Sweden. And then he said, but you're Spanish, right? Me. No, I'm Swedish. Old man, but really, you're Spanish, though. Me? Well, ethnically, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I don't think I have any relations in Spain, and I've lived in Sweden my whole life, so I do consider myself Swedish. Old man, are you sure you're not Spanish? You look Spanish. Me? I'm not. Old man, no, you are. After a few rounds of similar comments, I changed seats. Story 34. My ex at the time tried to explain to me in a convoluted way that if you cut a 3D ball in half, you'd see a 2D circle from a straight angle, then you would tilt the cut surface and you'd see what? He wanted to impress me with his correct answer after I would obviously fail. It was so weird I didn't get it at first, and I was like, duh, an ellipse? He was shocked as his engineering professor had told him this riddle in class, and no woman can solve this since we have no spatial insight. At the time, I was only mildly annoyed, but it makes me boil thinking back on it now. I can only imagine how that professor treated female students. Story 35. Last year, our internet wasn't working for almost a week, and resetting the router didn't work, so I had to call our provider's hotline. I told the guy that the internet hadn't been working for 5 days, that I'd already called the hotline a few times, and that I'd tried resetting the router multiple times. Despite me telling him this, I heard him clicking through my customer files for a bit, then he told me, "It says here that you moved in April, right?" It was July. Me, confused. Yeah? Why? He, well, you know that you have to install the router in your new place, right? I know he works at a hotline and has to deal with a lot of stupid people, but I honestly was offended that he thought it was that stupid. Also, he clearly didn't listen to me nor read my files correctly. Story 36. One time a man tried to tell me how a period worked. By the way, I am a woman. Present as a woman and obviously have had a few in my day. Well, the egg is released and comes down the tube. If the white liquid doesn't join up with it at that point, she will shed the cell and witch about it for a week. I asked him how he thought a period worked if we were just getting rid of a single cell. Well, obviously, there's a lot of trauma that comes from losing a single cell, so there would be a ton of red liquid. How much? Maybe a half gallon or so. When he noticed my eyes widen in shock, he said, I know, a lot, right? So now I know this guy is obviously a total expert. And he asked him why the cramps happen. He said, and I quote, "You witchers are just angry you didn't have intimacy enough that month." Oh my god, I've never laughed so hard at a man. Story 37. Once I saw my friend from school. I stopped to say hi, asked him what he was doing. He said he was studying science and maths in junior college. That's a great field, and maths is the language of the universe, so I responded cheerfully. He asked me what I was doing. I replied that I was in the art stream and would opt for my dual degree, BA-LLB. He said, "You know, I just pity everyone who chooses the arts field. Dumb field, but it is for dumb people, so it serves them right. Actually, except maths, science, and economics, everything else is BS for dumb people." He went on to explain that to me, and I couldn't reply. I mean, I agree that maths and science are great subjects, beautiful, even. That's just disappointing that a person who studies the language and functioning of the universe could not understand how to respect every branch of knowledge. How I didn't come up with a comeback, or even if I did, it just didn't feel right to insult the field of knowledge just because someone studying it was being a schmuck, so I said goodbye to him and walked away. Story 38. An Italian guy trying to help an American and the chemist in Italy kept asking for the wrong thing. The queue was building up. Eventually, I pepped up and told the chemist what the girl was looking for. The guy whipped around and started ranting about how he's an English teacher at the local high school and definitely speaks better English than me and how I should respect my elders. I was 21. He was in his late 40s, I think. I waited for him to finish, looking at him blankly, and then I told him, "I am English." He stormed out. Nothing to do with being a man, but everything to do with having a superiority complex. Story 39. Why I, as an Asian lady, was giving up while playing pool and not, just bad at it since I never actually play pool. This was because he did a tour around Asia and was now an expert in Asian women. He basically said that when Asian women start to lose, they just give up and don't try, and that's why Eastern culture is still fairly behind in feminism. Except it was a lot more verbose and high and mighty. Mind you, he was a random dude that decided to butt into my and my male friend's game, whom he decided to help learn to play while leaving me high and dry just to watch in between plays, which I didn't mind until he started spewing that BS. The best thing, though, was he somehow thought we became friends and he had a chance with me, and I shot his ego down hella hard. Of course, he acted like a baby, all passive-aggressive about being rejected. Story 40. One day I was out with a male friend and I expressed annoyance at the fact guys kept oogling at my melons. It's not that I put them fully on display. There might be a little, but nothing over the top. They just happened to be big melons. My friend replied that I couldn't blame men for staring at me because men have a primal drive to sow their oats in as many women as possible, and melons are an intimate object. Object? Doesn't sound like the right word for it, but whatever. So I shouldn't be surprised for getting the attention because I was increasing their drive. It's kind of sad because I like the belief that men aren't uncontrollable fiends who have absolutely no discipline or self-control when they see sexy things. I feel like that's giving men way too little credit. Story 41. So this guy in college, 2008, who was my best friend, walked up to a group of girls and announced to all of us that it's entirely the woman's fault that they get pregnant. Picture horror movie style, all of us craned our heads toward him with absolute animosity. I saved him and took him aside, saying, "Hey, I told him you were having some sort of bad day and to excuse you. Tell me what's wrong." You are clearly sick because you told all of those girls it's their fault they get pregnant. Guess you're not getting any, ever. He proceeded to tell me how women's stuff pulled in the white liquid, therefore making it their fault. Calmly, I said, "Please tell me where you got this information." He told me he read an old medical book in the library from the 1300s that revealed this knowledge, and since it was in the book, it was true. Cue 30 minutes of trying to get him to realize white liquid doesn't magically appear, that it still takes two people to tango, and he still did not get it. He refused to get it for 3 days and only came to his senses after none of the female friends in the group would hang out with the guys. A 1300s medical book is indeed a book, but gosh darn it, no. Use current information and don't find things that fit your narrative. Story 42. Ever since I was a kid, I've had 1 or 2 cavities every time I went to the dentist. I never had a big sweet tooth, and I brushed my teeth as often as any kid does, but it never failed, and I always got one. My brother, on the other hand, loved sugar and always made sure to eat candy if it was available, but he never got a cavity until he was 17. Go figure. I went to the dentist last week to get a tooth pulled, got an x-ray, and lo and behold, I have a cavity. I explained my history to the dentist and asked him why my brother didn't get cavities, but I do, and he said, with no humor in his voice, "I've found, in my experience, that men tend to go for sports drinks, while women like sweeter drinks like frappuccinos. The excess sugar hurts their teeth and makes them more prone to cavities." Silence. I stared at him, waiting for him to say he was joking. Nothing. I said, "Well, I don't like sweets and I don't care for coffee." He just goes, "Oh, well, then I don't know. So obviously I'm going to cut all those fraps out of my diet. I've been supporting a crazy fixation ever since I was a child, and this was my wake-up call." Story 43. I once attended this college my dad worked at for a semester to finish up 2 classes I needed to graduate. My youngest brother was also there. He happened to be friends with a guy who used to attend the school, and after meeting the guy once, he was adamant that I go out on a date with him. My brother gave him my number, even after I told him not to, and I was bullied by 3 other people into going on a date with him. On the drive over to the movie theater, the guy told me that he had asked around school about me and said I had a reputation of being the weird girl who always reads. He told me that I shouldn't be reading so much, because there is such a thing as being too smart, and no one would want to be friends with, much less date, a girl like that. He even said he read it in a book once. Let's just say we didn't see or talk to each other after he dropped me home later. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.